Yo, let's talk about it because this is a good point. Because most codependents are trying to control another person. Now, a lot of us hear control and we think bad. And it could be. It depends on the impacts and the behaviors that come with it. But control is morally neutral. Right now, I'm controlling this phone. But on the end of the codependency side that I fall into, trying to anticipate that person's needs, or like we talked about in this video, jumping into their interior and trying to help them manage their emotions, which is a boundary violation, is my attempt to help them feel at ease, to help them feel comforted, because that means I'm safe. And it's obvious to see how that often goes back to childhood. Oh, mom's upset, let me take care of her. Dad's upset, let me be a good boy, because I'm safe if they're calm. Now, what has happened in my experience may be similar to what has happened to yours. It's where the other person kind of latches on to the fact that you're codependent, and they learn to rely on that. They're kind of addicted to your problem solving and your helping. Meanwhile, they're not getting the strength that they need to work through their own problems because you're taking care of everything. And when that starts to go sour, when they're not getting their needs met by you in the way that they've grown used to, because quite frankly, we should have never been doing it in the first place, that bitterness and resentment can build up. Now, let's be clear, there's unhealthy aspects and fault on both sides here. And when this happens, they will often put a perception of you out there. Well, I don't even think you're really listening to me. And you're sitting there taking all sorts of mental notes, trying to decipher what you need to do. Like you couldn't be listening anymore. Well, if you really cared about me, you would. Meanwhile, your brain is exploding on the inside because you're like, I do everything I possibly can. And then what happens, which is what relates to this video, is that we end up defending the perception that person has on us, that they're projecting on us instead of standing in our truth. So for me, when I started to be able to actually voice some of my needs or try to bring up legitimate concerns, I'd say, hey, I'm not trying to be critical or anything, because I knew my ex's patterns. So I would anticipate that it would go this way, that they would become defensive and we would never get to the meat of what I wanted to discuss. And the second I said, I'm not trying to be critical, but I want to talk about this because it's really hurtful, they would say, well, now that you're saying you're not trying to be critical, that's exactly what I think you're doing. I wouldn't have even thought about it if you didn't put the idea in my head. And that right there is bullshit. Sure, in some ways, do our unhealthy coping mechanisms somehow create the situations that we're trying to avoid? Yes. But that was also clearly a projection on their part. But then, because I had low self-worth, didn't know how to stand up for myself, didn't have good boundaries, didn't know how to be firm but fair and kind, I would default to being nice because I have to take care of their concerns. So yeah, I see how you would say that, I'm really sorry, I'm not trying to. I just really want to talk about this. Well, why do we even have to talk? It never goes anywhere. And it never went anywhere, in part because I spent all the time trying to defend their perception of me, trying to control how they thought about me, which is not my business. I need to stay out of their interior. That's theirs to unpack. And in some ways, my codependency made it where they couldn't learn those skills themselves, but they're still responsible for it. See how it's both and?